Coca-Cola is the most recognized brand on planet Earth, sold and instantly recognized in more countries than the United Nations, even has member states. Its red and white logo more universally identifiable than most national flags. Almost nobody drinking it today knows the actual reason it was invented. It wasn't built to be refreshing. It wasn't built to be delicious or to sell at a 4th of July picnic. It was built by a desperate, addicted pharmacist trying to cure himself of a completely different drug entirely, using whatever chemistry he could get his hands on. This is the history of Coca-Cola. Our story starts with a sword wound, not a soda recipe. In April of 1865, near the very end of the American Civil War, a Confederate officer named John Stith Pemberton was seriously wounded during the Battle of Columbus, Georgia, slashed across the chest by an enemy saber in one of the war's final engagements. Like countless wounded soldiers of that era, doctors treated his pain with morphine, one of the only genuinely effective painkillers available at the time, freely administered with little understanding of its long-term consequences. Pemberton survived the war and returned home to Georgia. The morphine addiction that followed him home did not go away nearly as easily and would quietly shape the rest of his life. By profession, Pemberton was actually a trained pharmacist, and for the next 2 decades, he threw himself into finding a cure for his own addiction. Testing formula after formula on himself in a desperate, ongoing cycle of pharmaceutical trial and error, driven by a mixture of genuine medical curiosity and personal desperation. Some attempts were genuinely dangerous. One early recipe, called Dr. Tuggle's compound syrup of globe flower, relied on extract from the buttonbush, a plant now known to be toxic to the human nervous system in higher doses. Eventually, inspired by a popular French tonic called Vin Mariani, which mixed Bordeaux wine with coca leaf extract and had won praise from public figures across Europe, Pemberton developed his own version. He called it Pemberton's French Wine Coca, blending alcohol, coca leaf extract, the raw botanical source of cocaine, cola nut, a natural source of caffeine, and even an extract of damiana, an herb long associated with claimed medicinal properties. He marketed it as a cure for everything from nervous exhaustion to what advertisements of the era euphemistically called male weakness, a common catch-all phrase in the loosely regulated patent medicine trade of the period. Then, in 1886, Atlanta passed a wave of strict local temperance legislation, banning the sale of alcoholic beverages within city limits entirely, part of a broader moral reform movement sweeping through the American South at the time. Pemberton's wine-based tonic was suddenly illegal to sell in his own hometown, threatening to wipe out years of work overnight. Rather than abandon the formula entirely, he reworked it under real financial pressure, stripping out the alcohol and adding sugar and carbonated water in its place, keeping the coca leaf and cola nut base intact. On May 8, 1886, standing over a 3-legged brass kettle in the backyard of his home on Marietta Street, Pemberton finished the new, non-alcoholic version. He carried a jug of the syrup down the street to Jacobs's Pharmacy, where it was mixed with soda water and sold for the very first time, 5 cents a glass, alongside the store's other soda fountain offerings. In its entire first year on sale, the drink sold an average of only about 9 glasses a day, a modest, almost unremarkable start for what would eventually become a global phenomenon, selling well over 1 billion servings daily. If you're enjoying stories like this, hit subscribe now. This channel digs up hidden histories exactly like this one every single week. The name and the now famous flowing script logo weren't Pemberton's idea at all. Credit for both belongs to his bookkeeper and business partner, a man named Frank Robinson, who thought the 2 hard C's in Coca-Cola would look striking in newspaper advertising, and personally handwrote the elegant cursive logo still used almost completely unchanged today. Early advertisements didn't sell the drink as a refreshing treat. They sold it as medicine, calling it a cure for headaches, exhaustion, and nervous conditions, squarely in line with the same pharmaceutical thinking that had produced it in the first place. Here's the detail most people never learn, the one fact that almost never makes it into the company's own polished, family-friendly version of its origin story. The original formula genuinely did contain cocaine, extracted directly from coca leaves, alongside caffeine from the cola nut, the exact combination Pemberton had built specifically to wean himself off morphine. It wasn't a rumor or an urban legend. It was printed openly in the pharmaceutical trade language of the era, sold as a legitimate patent medicine in a period with essentially no federal drug regulation whatsoever. Pemberton never got the chance to see what his invention would eventually become. His health declined rapidly, worsened by ongoing stomach illness, possibly cancer, and an addiction that had simply shifted from one substance to another rather than disappearing entirely. Exactly the outcome he had spent 20 years trying to avoid. Desperate for money to cover mounting medical bills and continue funding his own morphine use, he began selling off pieces of his business to various Atlanta investors one at a time, watching his own creation slip out of his hands piece by piece while he was still alive to see it happen. A slow-motion loss of everything he'd built. Among the buyers was a sharp, ambitious wholesale drug dealer named Asa Candler, who acquired a two-thirds stake for roughly $1,200 in 1888. Pemberton died that same year, on August 16th, in genuine poverty, leaving his wife in serious financial distress and a one-third stake in the company to his son, Charlie, who struggled with addiction himself and eventually sold his remaining share to Candler as well, completing the full transfer. Depending on which historical account you trust, the entire formula and brand changed hands for a total somewhere between $700 and $2,300 across these various transactions, an almost unbelievably small sum for what would eventually become one of the most valuable brands ever created in human history. Asa Candler had none of Pemberton's medical background, and frankly, he didn't need it. He systematically stripped away the medicinal language from Coca-Cola's advertising, reframing it as a refreshing soda fountain treat rather than a headache remedy, and poured aggressive effort into distribution, coupons, oilcloth signs, and branded merchandise plastered across Atlanta streetcars. Within a year of Candler taking control, similar advertising signs had appeared at 14 different soda fountains across the city alone. Under his direction, the company grew from a single Atlanta backyard operation into a genuine national phenomenon within just over a decade, formally incorporating as the Coca-Cola Company in 1892. By the early 1900s, mounting public concern over cocaine content in consumer products, combined with tightening drug regulations sweeping across the United States, pushed the company to finally remove the cocaine alkaloid from the recipe entirely, while still using specially processed, decocainized coca leaf extract for flavoring, a practice that, remarkably, continues in some form to this very day. That's not an exaggeration for dramatic effect either. Coca-Cola still legally imports coca leaves today, processed through a single specialized facility in the United States that is licensed to extract the cocaine alkaloid separately for legitimate pharmaceutical use, while shipping the remaining spent cocaine-free leaf material onward for use in Coca-Cola's flavoring formula. The plant that once gave the drink its name and its narcotic kick technically never actually left the recipe. Only the drug itself did, leaving behind a plant-derived flavor note that survives in every single can and bottle sold worldwide, whether the roughly 200 countries buying it today realize that connection or not. So the next time you crack open an ice-cold Coca-Cola, sitting at a barbecue, or grabbing one from a vending machine without a second thought, think about the actual chain of events that put it in your hand. A saber wound during the Civil War, a desperate addict's homemade cure tested on himself over and over across 20 difficult years, a temperance law that accidentally created a soda empire almost by legal accident, and an inventor who died poor and still addicted, having sold away the rights to what would become the most recognized brand on the entire planet for a few $1,000s, never once imagining what it would eventually become, or how many billions of glasses would eventually be poured from the formula he built purely to save himself. If this surprised you, subscribe for more hidden histories behind the everyday brands and objects you never think twice about. Real history hiding in plain sight inside the products sitting in your own refrigerator right now. Next time, we're uncovering the dark truth behind another one of the world's most famous soft drinks.